Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very interesting episode of Panther Pourri Express, a Florida Hockey Now video podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Langsam. Here with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Alex Lopez and TJ Peterson. And folks, that big right shot defenseman that can help on the power play has been found, identified, and officially traded for. Seth Jones is now a Florida Panther. Somewhere in a nice big house in Vancouver. Dale Talon is laughing because now we have Barkov and Seth Jones, because the Panthers love just going to grab all the draft picks surrounding the picks that they actually made. Seth Jones is now a Florida Panther, 25% retained by Chicago, so his cap hit will be $7.1 million for the next 4 years.
26.3% actually just came out. It's a $7 million flat. Not that it changes perfect. My opinion.
Well, perfect. Whatever. Yeah, 100. That extra $100,000 really isn't doing anything for anyone. Spencer Knight, no longer a Florida Panther. The 2026 first-round pick, no longer a Florida Panther. Full trade details, of course, are Jones and a 2026 fourth for Spencer Knight and a conditional 2026 first. I don't remember all the conditions around it, but the short version is if we don't have our 26th first for whatever reason, I assume that was like the Matthew Tkachuk trade or something.
Yes.
Then the Blackhawks will receive the Panthers' 2027 first-round pick instead. Let's go around the horn. Immediate reactions. Alex, you want to get us going?
I hate it. This is Ben Sherratt 2.0 with a much, much bigger contract. I mean, this has been not rumored in the sense of like, oh, the team, like there's rumors that the teams are talking or reports the teams are talking. It was just basically Elliot Friedman saying, hey, Florida would be a very good fit for Seth Jones. And, you know, we've talked about it on Twitter. We briefly talked about it on the pod. And the entire time I've been saying, no, you don't want, and we were talking about it at 50%. It's like, no, I don't want a $4.5 million gamble on the roster that you cannot get rid of if this doesn't work. Like, to now that he's a Florida Panther for $7 million, you give up Spencer Knight, who was a luxury, but he's like the consistency we've all been wanting from him, you've gotten over the past 6 to 8 weeks. So I hate this trade. I really don't like it. And you know what it also means? And because George Richards, when he was talking about this trade and on Florida Hockey Now, it's probably the end of Aaron Ekblad's tenure on July 1st. I mean,
I would go as high as like $6 million. I don't think that extra million is really going to kill me. In general, here's how I feel about this trade. If we had to give up a young roster player, which is what Chicago was very adamant that they wanted, I would rather it be Spencer Knight than like a Mackie Samoskevich or an Anton Lundell.
TJ, we can now hear you.
I don't hate this. And I don't hate this because I think I am Zito-pilled, like, pretty significantly. Just from a pure logic standpoint, there has only been one move that Bill Zito has made work. So I don't hate this. And I think the reason that I don't hate this primarily is that I am largely Zito-pilled. And I think this is the other point I wanted to bring up or dispute you on. The only move that Bill Zito has made that hasn't worked was Ben Sherratt. Seth Jones is a lot better than Ben Sherratt. I think that Bill Zito has earned our trust, and he has shown us that like he doesn't gamble. You know, Bill Zito is risk averse. Bill Zito has done a great job of trying to make moves that he can only win. I think Bill Zito has earned enough trust in the moves that he has made that if he was taking a swing like this on a player with term, whose contract is that hard to get rid of, that there has to be a high level of confidence inside the organization that it will work. He has earned that trust from us.
Yes. No argument whatsoever. Earn the trust.
If we had to give up a roster player, a young roster player, which Chicago wanted, I'm honestly glad that it was Spencer Knight and not like Anton Lundell or Mackie Samoskevich. I adore Spencer Knight, the human being. But Spencer Knight, the NHL goalie, yes, he's been a lot better as this season has gone on than he had been in the past, but he's still not exactly a sure thing. And his contract situation is still not favorable. As the cap rises here, Seth Jones at $7 million probably ain't going to seem all that bad. And I cannot stress enough that a lot of the animosity around Seth Jones, the hockey player, stems more from his contract than his actual play. It's that he was never worth $9.5 million. It's not that he's a horrible NHL defenseman.
Is he going
to win a Norris? Is he going to win a Norris anytime soon? I doubt it, but it's chart time, baby. And Seth Jones, very strong offensive player, very strong offensive defenseman, and keep in mind that's on a very bad Blackhawks team. Not as strong defensively, but Paul Maurice's system has shown to be pretty effective at helping defensemen regain their defensive abilities. Really good on the power play, and pretty good at penalty killing. Like, Seth Jones is the right-handed puck-moving defenseman that we have needed. The big looming question here is going to be, how good is Spencer Knight going to get? And is Seth Jones going to remain worth $7 million until he's 35 years old?
I don't think he's worth $7 million now.
I think in this Florida Panthers system, he could easily be a $7 million defenseman. Ekblad is a $7 million defenseman. And I'm not saying Seth Jones is as good as Ekblad, but I think he could be.
I don't buy it. I just don't.
Look,
I mean,
it's very possible that I'm trying to just hype myself up about this because I don't want to be mad at Bill Zito.
I mean, look, I'm with you. He's made one mistake as the GM of the Florida Panthers, and that's the Ben Sherratt trade. But it's kind of to me, this is kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, you knew the guy when, you were in Columbus and there's that familiarity there. And I think Bill Zito's kind of letting that personal relationship cloud his judgment a bit, because this is not a $7 million player right now.
All right, guys, I'm done giving Bill Zito the silent treatment out of anger out of this trade. So, no, actually, I was just having audio issues, but I'm finally here. So I'm going to piggyback onto what Alex is saying to give you my overall take, and that I'm much more with Alex on this. And even in my moment where I was like, well, it's Bill Zito, how can you doubt Bill Zito? I still came down more on the side that it's more likely this is Bill Zito feeling like he's on a hot streak, and it's just the right thing to do because he feels like it's the right thing to do to trade for a guy. But in reality, the reason that he thinks it's the right thing to do is because he knows Seth Jones and probably likes him on a personal level. Look, if he goes out and proves this wrong, that's great. In my opinion, if they had gone out and traded nothing for him 50% retained, I would be like 60% approving of it. It would still be like a pretty big risk to get him on like a $5 million deal for the next 5 years, because there's been some abysmal seasons that he's had in the past few years. But overall, he's been playing well lately. Not like very well, but well. He's a $5-6 million defenseman, probably. He could decline because he's, 30 years old?
He's 30, yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking until he's 34, so the decline is coming. And he's not a $7 million defenseman now. So it's got to be like Zito knows how to make him into that productive player that he can be. But like the Blackhawks thought that they could do that. The Blue Jackets thought that they could do that.
Is the thing. Like, Seth Jones has not played for a good Blackhawk team. ever.
One of the main reasons that they suck is because they traded a lot of assets for Seth Jones, and the Panthers just did that.
Look,
I wouldn't say they traded a lot of assets. They traded two things.
Well, think about it this way. This is the thing I actually think is more frustrating about it. Whatever, they don't have a first round pick and they don't have the cap room. But I guess that is what I'm saying. So it's a hard way for me. It's hard for me to be like, I don't care that they're mortgaging the future, but there's an opportunity cost because they should have been mortgaging these pieces for something else. Like, the cap space is now gone to potentially make a move for Mikko Rantanen in the offseason if he becomes available.
That was never happening.
No. Jacob Chychrun,
he was never. Chychrun is a potential.
That $7 million could have gone to Jacob Chychrun. I mean, yes, he's a left shot instead of a right shot, but he's younger. He's a hell of a lot better.
You got to be honest. I'm taking a look at Puckpedia here at defensemen with like 4 to 7 years left on their contracts in the $6 to $8 million range. Because I'm trying to find like contract comparables to make us feel better about what a $7 million defenseman is. And the first two are like the most different results you could imagine. The first two players that fit the criteria are Jacob Trouba and Quinn Hughes, who like Trouba is one of the worst defensemen at that price point, and Quinn Hughes is one of the best defensemen in the league, period. Forget the price point.
Yeah. The reigning Norris Trophy winner.
Jared Spurgeon's also in that range. Vince Dunn, Devin Taves, Brandon Montour. Like, there is no consistency in the apparent quality of a $6 to $8 million defenseman. This is all over the map.
You brought up Brandon Montour's name. That's another thing. Like, we knew that Brandon Montour fit into the system. And we just said, well, Brandon Montour, nice player. $7 million, though, like, it's a lot. And then Seth Jones is apparently worth a little bit more?
First of all, less. Montour is
not a little bit more?
Montour is 7.1. $7,142,857 to Seth Jones is $7 million flat. The other thing you have to consider is we were never going to sign Brandon Montour to a 7-year deal. We only have Seth Jones for 4.
Oh, but Who cares about those extra years? No, those don't matter.
Bill Zito
should care about that.
It's Bill Zito's job to care about those extra years.
Hold on.
They're not going to be competing for a Stanley Cup those years.
They could if they're smart with their money.
Guys, none of it's relevant. There wasn't $7 million to give Brandon Montour in the offseason.
That's also true.
The only reason they're able to do this is, one, Spencer Knight had rehabbed his value so you could actually trade him to a team that wanted him rather than having to pay someone to take him or retain on him or buy him out. And two, we're near the end. When the season started, they had like $850K in cap space. Because of the way the NHL salary cap rules, they had like 2.5. So you were able to make the deal work. That's the only reason they can afford a $7 million contract right now. As for, would I prefer Brandon Montour over Seth Jones? Absolutely. Do I think? Yeah. I just don't like this deal. And by the way, you were talking.
Were you thinking to yourself in the middle of the season, like, God, letting Brandon Montour walk was such a mistake? I'd trade a first-round pick to undo that. Like, no. That's crazy.
To be honest, there were a couple of times throughout this season where I was like, man, we sure could use Brandon Montour right about now.
Yeah. Look.
That thought has crossed my mind multiple times.
One thing I'm going to add, because I know, Jacob, you're about to start sharing the charts. According to Dom Leschuzens's player card model, Seth Jones' market value is $3.8 million. So you're still overpaying 3.2 for Seth Jones.
I would be very curious. His cards say that he was worth $6 million.
I would also be very curious to know what those cards said about guys like Sam Bennett and Brandon Montour before they became Panthers. Gus Forsling, Nico Mikkola. These are all players who looked terrible on the surface based on the publicly available data that Bill Zito saw something in and turned into
or somebody else in that organization that he trusts, but it is essentially his responsibility to make the move ultimately.
The point is, the Panthers, Bill Zito's Panthers, have a history of acquiring other teams' cast-offs and turning them into stars. Why would Seth Jones be any different?
This isn't a cast-off price, though.
It's not a cast-off price, and it's not a cast-off product. Like, look, for every Forsling, there was a Noah Juleson. There was who was the other guy from Vancouver that we brought in? Ole Levy. Like, yeah, we're the place to rehab, trash and turn it into treasure. But if you can't rehab this trash, it's trash for 5 more years at $7 million.
Which is why I'm confident in this trade. Because you have to consider the price to try to rehab those players. Extremely low. I really don't think that Bill Zito takes a swing on a player that will have 4 years remaining on his contract after this season for $7 million and effectively 2 first-round picks. It's not a swing Zito's taking without some internal data telling him it's a good idea. Bill Zito is a big fan of good ideas, and he's a big fan of swings when he's confident.
Actually, I'm a big fan of bad ideas. Me and Bill Zito are just different.
We know that, TJ. We know that based on your tweets when we first traded for Sam Bennett.
And his thoughts on Anton Lundell, and his thoughts on Mackie Samoskevich. And his thoughts on Brandon Montour.
What? No, the Brandon Montour trade, I was like, it's a throwaway asset. He's been terrible, but it's a dart, The Sam Bennett trade, it was significantly more assets, and basically everybody agreed with me. Don't forget about that.
No,
I just came out stronger.
I did not. My view on Sam Bennett was always,
let's wait and see.
This could work. It was always, he isn't great, but they could put the pieces around him to make him what he's supposed to be, and that's what they did, and it worked, and Sam Bennett is a Stanley Cup champion.
There's more sample size of Seth Jones playing well in the NHL to this point than Sam Bennett playing well in the NHL to that point. So if you do want to turn yourself optimistic on this trade, there is that. But at the same time, if every GM in the league could just say, well, it might work, look at Sam Bennett. Like, I don't know what the lesson is from the Sam Bennett trade that has allowed us to identify those players that are undervalued that you can go get, that haven't been performing on those other teams, and you take them into your system and all of a sudden they're good. I don't know what the lesson is, and the lesson can't just be, well, it might work, The
thing is,
you can do that with any player in the league.
But the lesson isn't just coming from the Sam Bennett trade. The lesson is coming from the Sam Bennett trade, the waiver claim of Gus Forsling, the Brandon Montour trade. Again, time and time again, Bill Zito has turned these guys into studs.
But if
Why
they
should
really
it be any
were
different
that
for Seth
confident
Jones?
that Gus Forsling was going to turn into, not even just the player that he is today or anything resembling that. If they thought he was going to be a top 4 defenseman, they wouldn't have waited for him to maybe be on waivers. They wouldn't have gone into the season thinking, he's definitely going to hit waivers, so we're definitely going to be able to get him. They wouldn't have taken the risk that Carolina goes into training camp with him, and they're like, you know what, he's got something. Let's put him in the lineup. And all of a sudden, he's not available. They would have traded for him if they thought he was a top 4 defenseman.
They could have identified him as a target and then
I don't want to call it dumb luck, because it's not dumb luck. It's smart luck, but it is luck.
First of all, you can't consider it dumb luck when there is a sample size that goes beyond Gus Forsling.
But if you can't
it's
give
not
them
like Gus
credit for him
Forsling
becoming
is the only
a
move like that
defenseman.
Zito has made, and now all of a sudden he's taking this big swing for Seth Jones.
Yeah, you're right about that. But again, if they thought Gus Forsling was going to be a top pair defenseman, they would have traded for him rather than waiting for the waivers.
Look, maybe they didn't think he would turn into a top pairing defenseman, but they saw a player, maybe he wasn't even on a radar until he was on waivers, and then he had his staff find out whether or not they should put in a claim, and they saw something they liked. I can't stress enough how god-awful Nico Mikkola's analytics cards were before he was a Panther.
And I'm pretty sure all 3 of us were like, you can't just look at the analytics with this.
Right. And you know why we did that? You know why we took that particular position where we were like, well, yeah, he sucked in St. Louis and New York, but why did we take that position? It's because we had the trust and the faith in Bill Zito that there was something there that made us target him. And that's exactly how I feel about Seth Jones. And the fact that the price is higher makes me more confident because Bill Zito is certainly not just throwing assets away on a player that he's taking a gamble on. If he's not confident in this move, he's not giving up assets for it.
I mean, the Matthew Tkachuk trade aside, Bill Zito's best moves have not been when he's given up the most assets. Obviously, like, that's his best move, but looking back in hindsight...
Sam Reinhart? Sam Reinhart.
Oh, I forgot about Sam Reinhart altogether.
Whoa. You guys are both forgetting something. A certain Matthew Tkachuk?
I said aside from Matthew Tkachuk.
TJ said aside from Matthew Tkachuk to start.
But I did forget Sam Reinhart.
Yeah, Sam Reinhart is the other example of that. Now, the very interesting connection here is, if I'm not mistaken, part of the reason we were comfortable getting rid of Devin Levi for Sam Reinhart is because we had Spencer Knight in the back, and now we don't.
Yeah, so thank you for transitioning us. Chris Driedger is now your backup goalie. He was really good for the Panthers 5 or so years ago. But that
was the President's Trophy year, right? Where Driedger was our backup.
I think so.
I think it was. I don't think Alex Lyon was the backup for the.
He wasn't. Chris Driedger was the backup that year. I'm pretty sure.
And he was excellent that year. So that was 21-22.
Yeah, then he got taken in the expansion draft by Seattle, was expected to be the number 1, and then they went out and signed
Grubauer,
the German Grubauer.
Now, I'm a lot less concerned about the rest of this season as far as Chris Driedger is concerned. My big question now is what's your plan going forward? My big question is next year is Sergei Bobrovsky's last year. What's your succession plan if you no longer have Spencer Knight?
I mean, we weren't sure that Spencer Knight was the answer to begin with. So.
Correct. But now we know that it isn't.
I mean,
unless it is.
You could always re-sign him. He's a free agent.
His contract also expires after next season. Maybe you just bring him back as a free agent and call it a day. Maybe the handshake, the under-the-table handshake with Spencer Knight was give us next year and then come back and be our starter.
I mean, what I would say is that it's definitely now a problem you need to solve.
Yeah.
But in terms of when I'm going to start worrying about it, I'm going to start worrying about it in July of 2027 or 2026, excuse me.
You should start worrying about it in July of 2025, to be honest.
The goalie of the future? No.
Because 2025-26 is the last season of Bob's contract.
Right. So you
need to know what's coming next during next season.
I disagree. I think you find your Stolars who you can sign for $1 million and you put all of your cap space to trying to win another cup with forwards and defensemen because you only play one goalie in the playoffs unless someone gets hurt. So you do that, and then in the following summer, you figure it out or you either, I haven't looked, but I'm sure there's going to be some free agent goalies out there. There's also probably going to be goalies available for trade.
I'm just saying, Dan Vladar looked like prime Dominik Hasek against the Panthers today, and he's a UFA this summer.
My God, Dan,
that would be a bad idea.
I agree.
I'm not in favor of that.
I don't actually want it. Today had to be like the best game of his life, and he still lost 3-0.
But I know we're kind of crapping on him, but that was one of the best goalie performances you'll see this year.
That was fucking it was fucking nuts, man. It was the best. It had to be the best performance of his career. Obviously, I haven't watched every single one of Dan Vladar's games, but he was insane today.
No, but that's a performance of a lifetime. There were half a dozen highlight reel saves where you're like, oh, this is 100% an easy goal, and all of a sudden he's throwing a glove out there, an arm out there, a stick out there, and just absolutely robbing people blind. This wasn't a game where oh yeah, there was 40-something shots, but most of them were low danger. No, he was getting peppered with premium chance after premium chance and just held his ground the whole time. I mean, I think that goalie interference call that wiped out, I think it was Reinhart's goal.
Yeah.
That was a horrible call.
I thought that was less goalie interference than the one that counted by Kachovic. I thought that one was definitely coming off the board, but that's another conversation.
You guys know who's a UFA after the season?
Who?
Aiden Hill.
I'm not a huge Aiden Hill fan.
Well, let me just
he beat us in the finals. You have to give him some respect.
Let me just take this at 30,000 feet real quick. Not really, because I'm going to use a simile. Like not Carolina. Oh my God. Colorado won the Stanley Cup a few years ago. I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're like, that was easy for Colorado. They didn't really get challenged in the playoffs. So this is now about to be like, they're going to be the next Tampa Bay. They're going to be in the Stanley Cup. They might win another next year. And they really haven't come close since. And a big problem for them has been the goaltending. Yeah. They went out and they said, let's get Alexander Georgiev on for a third, a fourth, and a fifth, or something like that. And at that time, he was a rising goalie. So maybe you could have said Spencer Knight is Alexander Georgiev in this example, or you could say the guy that the Panthers would go out and get instead of Spencer Knight is Alexander Georgiev in this example. So it can go either way, but that's a real point to look at, because we've thought to ourselves, man, Colorado's got Makar, they've got McKinnon, they've got Rantanen. They're set up to be great for years and years. Landeskog too, and then we realized that he was never going to play again, essentially. That it can sink you if you don't have the succession plan in goal. But also, we saw for years that the Panthers were like, we can't have no solution in goal. Let's give Bobrovsky $10 million. It was a big problem for them for a number of years, and it took them basically getting the best GM in the NHL to fix it.
There actually are a lot of very interesting UFA names in the goalie list, but we can save that for later.
It's not even really this summer, though, because Bob is going to be the starter next year unless he has a terrible postseason.
I feel like you can go into next year with Bob as your number two. If you identify someone you want to move forward with after next season, because you know who's a UFA who has some really good underlying numbers but has never played for a good team is Karel Vejmelka.
Yeah, if they see something in the Seth Jones profile that's like, this is a $9 million defenseman and we can go out and get him for a $7 million cap hit, add him to our team in the prime of a Stanley Cup window, like, we need to go out and do this, especially since the D market is very, very, very light.
That's Seth the Jones other reason that I'm okay with this, by the way.
Seth Jones was the best defenseman available.
Correct.
And we're talking about him like, he's not very good. I do believe that he's not very good. When I say he's not very good, that may make it sound like I'm saying he's a third pairing guy. He is a middle pairing defenseman, in my view.
He's not a Norris caliber defenseman.
No, I don't think he's a top pair defenseman, which is what I think you have to be to make $7 million.
Is he a better skater than Aaron Ekblad?
Yeah, but he's not better at almost anything else.
If he's a better skater than Aaron Ekblad, staple him to Gus Forsling and watch the Panthers win the Stanley Cup again.
Aaron Ekblad's had a great year.
Yeah.
Aaron Ekblad's a better defenseman than Seth Jones.
He is certainly better defensively.
He's been really, really good this year.
Yeah.
At a lot of things. He's not the most fleet of foot defenseman, but that's not everything.
That's what Forsling is for.
Mark Stone's not very fast.
Matthew Tkachuk is one of the worst skaters in the league.
is much faster than Mark Stone, but
Matthew
I'd rather have Mark Stone
is one of the worst and definitely one of the slowest skaters
in the
the Tkachuk brothers in general. Skating ain't exactly their strong suit.
Yeah.
No.
Fucking shit up is.
Yeah, okay, so all of a sudden you have Seth Jones, Nico Mikkola as your second pair then? Great.
Yeah. And I could see it working also from his playing style, though, because he's a guy that is like a rover. He can be a forward in a pinch.
And the Panthers have very good defensive forward. Like, Seth Jones is not going to be relied upon to necessarily be the primary defender in any given scenario. He's a right shot defenseman who's pretty good on the power play. That's what the Panthers needed, and that's what they got. And $7 million isn't what $7 million used to be. Zito's not taking the swing without confidence.
I was coming down on the other side of the Seth Jones narrative for the past couple of years because people were still treating him like he was AHL level or something like that. And he had picked up his game from being, not AHL level, but like not one of the better defensemen in the league to now being like a guy that is definitely getting a big contract in free agency if he becomes available. Like he's getting at least $40 million, probably close to 50 if he hits the market, especially since teams are just locking up their defensemen now. Yeah. You rarely see guys get moved, and Marcus Pettersson got a first round pick and a huge extension. and he's a guy that's like in my opinion is pretty similar to Seth Jones in terms of just like how good he is. They're not very similar defensemen.
Completely
but
opposite.
I'd say that like, but like you probably want one just as much as you want the other.
Yeah.
But the Vancouver has way less of a risk when they're making that trade. They get him the season that they're getting him for, like the Rangers had, or no, Pittsburgh. The contract that Pittsburgh traded to them came with much less risk. Ooh, look at that. We got some graphics going
That's
here.
a pretty good chart, man.
It
will get
fine.
better on a good team.
It's fine. That's not a $7 million chart.
It will be on a good team. Watch that number rise.
That's what you have to bet on. But I mean, Ben Sherratt could also said that about him.
No, Ben Sherratt's look.
Yeah, but then I could just as easily go back and say Nico Mikkola.
I'm the one who likened this to the Ben Sherratt trade. Ben Sherratt's analytics were horrible.
They were really bad.
God, they were awful.
It was all red. So like, look, I will readily admit these are promising numbers. The fact that his defense is really low, like the way the Panthers play, I would expect his defense, especially because he is a good skater, to improve. The Panthers' defensive strategy is get the puck, move the puck up ice as fast as possible. There's not a lot of complication to it. It's why every time you're listening to smart people talk about the Panthers, especially like the PDO podcast and Dmitry Filipovich or Dom Luszczyszyn, he's talking about the Panthers like it's just get the puck, go forward. It's the simplest thing in the world, and it makes playing defense, shockingly enough, a lot easier because there's a lot less to think about when you get the puck on your stick. The mistakes get made defensively when it's trying to get a zone exit, and the Panthers have probably the simplest zone exit strategy in the NHL. Skate it fast forward. So, yeah, could I see improvement?
Seth Jones will help with that.
He will help with that. I'm going to go, shift away from me being negative into seeing the way that this could be a positive for the Panthers. Is yes, I think his defensive output will improve. I also think the fact that he's no longer going to be counted on to be the number one defenseman is going to make things better.
That's that's a great
thing.
point that we hadn't even touched. He was
Except on
Chicago's
power play.
number one defenseman.
Yeah.
But he's
but
good
he's
at
gonna
the
be on
power play. But he's good at power play.
I just thought of something that is like the best possible silver lining for the trade. I really don't think there's another move they could have made that improved their Stanley Cup chances this season more. Like I guess Rantanen, but like that was pie in the sky. Like they wouldn't have been able to get Rantanen for this package, even if they like added Mackey. Probably not happening. It probably would have. It would have been Sam Bennett, Mackey, first round pick, and Spencer Knight, and that probably isn't getting it done anyway because Marty Necas was just a phenomenal asset. And the only real reason that I would have said Rantanen would have been a good fit, because I do think that he's a little bit overrated generally, is because he's Finnish. So he comes in, he gets to play with Barkov, and Lundell, Luosterainen, and Mikkola as well. You have that Finnish contingent, and that just raises everybody's level a little bit because they have that cohort, and that would have been great, but it's not going to happen. This is pretty much the next best thing that they could do to win the Stanley Cup this season. And that is ultimately the goal, that you've got your window. It's right effing now.
Right.
Go out and maximize your chances. And I really don't know what else they could have done to do that, because it's a light trade market. Like Brock Nelson's not moving the needle for me, especially since, again, opportunity cost. More minutes for Brock Nelson is less minutes for Sam Bennett or Anton Lundell,
right.
Or maybe you put him on the wing, but that's an odd fit. Are you getting the most out of Brock Nelson? You got to pay for Brock Nelson, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Like there's really not a lot they could have done that would have maximized their chances to win this season more.
Look, with the emergence of Mackie Samoskevich, who's been honestly excellent.
He has 10 goals this season. That came out of nowhere. They announced when Andrew Imber was missing his goal at during the game today, and he said his 10th of the season. I was like, Mackie has 10 goals? Like, damn, that rules for him.
10 goals isn't, no, it's really not that good.
But he's also, remember,
It is for his first 50 games.
He's also missed time. He's played mostly in the bottom six. What do I agree that 10 goals is an outstanding number? No. But I think you're seeing that he is able to score goals and create, and now he is on the second line replacing Matthew Tkachuk. And even when before the break he was playing, the line was Tkachuk, Bennett, and Mackey. It was a good line, and he wasn't just the third guy benefiting.
Yeah.
He was creating. He is showing
He's been steadily improving throughout the season. Like, that's the other thing worth noting. TJ, your critique of him was always that his brain is moving too fast, or his body's moving too fast for his brain. The goal he scored today, full line tic-tac-toe with a drop pass, a feed, and a deke. He was following that play perfectly, read the ice to be exactly where he needed to be and make exactly the move he needed to make to score that goal. His brain is catching up, and that's what we needed to see from him this season. And
he's very toolsy. Like, he's got speed, he's got a good shot, he throws his body around. He is exactly what you want in a middle six winger. And, it kind of sucks he's breaking out right now before he's been re-signed, because, that bridge of 2 years at 1.5 is now going to probably be a bridge of 3.3.
The counting stats still have to get up to a certain level, because right now he's got
8 years, $2 million
than Keegan
per Colton
Kolesar.
Sisson special.
Yes, but look, going back to Jacob's point is there, because Mackey is improving, and you are, hopefully getting Tkachuk back. If they didn't think they were getting Tkachuk back and this was your big move with all your cap space, I don't get it. But that doesn't seem to be the case, considering he hasn't been put on LTIR yet.
Right.
This is like, you don't need a forward. What you want.
They should get a forward, though.
No, I was about to say you should get a forward, but it's not the Tarasenko move. It's the Okposo move. Who's the old guy without a cup you can get for a song that if you need him, you insert him into the lineup for, that veteran. I don't want to say leadership, but like, hey, it's the old guy who doesn't have a cup, who is going to go balls to the wall every second because this is his last chance, which is what you got from Okposo last year, and you can get it for a 7th round pick. You do it again this year, whoever it is out there, and that's your forward move.
I want to leave the podcast with this. I never liked the emphasis during the anthems on Knight when he wasn't playing. When Knight was in net, it was great. But Panthers fans did that when Knight wasn't playing, even when Knight wasn't in the NHL.
They did it when
it always bothered me.
They did it when we were playing the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final. It was infuriating.
What I will leave this podcast with is
probably because that was the Vegas fans.
No, it was
genuinely. I am glad that the emphasis on Knight during the anthem will be no more.
And this concludes Panther Pourri's discourse on national anthem conduct. Over. Over.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so rate us 5 stars at your favorite deep dish spot in Chicago, and be prepared for Seth Jones' debut as a Florida Panther coming up.
I have one more topic. What defenseman comes out of the lineup?
It's either Uvis or Kulikov. I don't know which.
No, I think it's Uvis or Schmidt.
Oh,
Schmidt's been pretty good recently. Schmidt's been pretty good recently.
They've all been good. They've all been good. You're going to be sitting someone you don't want to sit, which is a great problem to have.
The answer is Kulikov, then. The answer is the oldest, slowest, and worst one of them.
I don't think Maurice is going to do that.
I'd say load manage Kulikov.
Yeah.
Like, it'll probably be Uvis most of the time, Schmidt some of the time, but they should also sit Kulikov just to get him ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you should be rotating the 3 of them.
I think that's what TJ just said.
And someone will get injured and solve the problem, probably.
But he's not wrong. He's not wrong. The Panthers, outside of Tkachuk, have been very lucky in terms of injuries. I mean, Barkov missed a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But, they've been very healthy, especially on defense. Eventually someone's going to get hurt. Actually, no, Ekblad missed some time this year.
Yes, he did.
Ekblad always misses time, though.
Yeah, right. So the Ekblad injury, now you're covered with that right-handed defenseman.
Right. All right. Well, rate us 5 stars at your favorite deep dish spot in Chicago when you go visit Spencer Knight, be prepared for Seth Jones' debut as a Florida Panther, which I believe will be Monday against Tampa.
That's right. Unless he has an injury or something.
Fails a physical. Don't expect that.
Did the team officially? No, they did officially announce it. So he didn't fail the physical.
Yes, and I know I saw a Blackhawks post that was like, hey, good luck in Florida. Thanks for everything. So yeah, Seth Jones' debut Monday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hell of a game to debut. You could really endear yourself to the Florida Panthers faithful with a good debut performance against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
You can get me to change my tune real quickly if you can, get an assist and light up Kucherov in the same game.
I was going to say, forget the assist. Just deliver a huge open ice hit on Kucherov.
I can't endorse changing an opinion based on regular season hockey. Regular season.
Fine, then give it until the end of June when Stanley Cup champion Seth Jones is doing a lap around Amaranth Bank Arena.
I'll add this to my notch of bad takes, which is as long, if not longer, than the notch of good takes. If Seth Jones is lifting the cup, which again, I said, this improves their chances of lifting the cup more than any other move they could have made now that Rantanen's off the board. And he was probably never on the board.
I for one, am excited to see what Bill Zito's got up his sleeves.
He's going to make them a better team. There's no doubt about it.
So, good night, everybody. Go Panthers.
Go Panthers and go Seth Jones.
Now, Seth Jones.